In today's video, I'm going to be explaining the basics, the beginning basics, and realistically, the slightly advanced as well topicry of hypnosis and self hypnosis. Basically, they are the same thing. Hypnosis and self hypnosis are two sides of the same coin. They're two different sides of the same coin. And they work simultaneously with one another. When you watch the other YouTube videos that are giving a rundown of hypnosis, they're very helpful. But it seems as though these other hypnotists want to teach you hypnosis the hard way. And that involves a lot of dedication and practice and a lot of patience and time spent learning for yourself what hypnosis is. And I don't entirely disagree with that methodology because it really solidifies it within the brain, within one's own mind, especially. However, I also would be under the impression that the easy way of teaching hypnosis is also the hard way, because you still need to actively solidify it. You still need to actively practice it. You still need to actively be dedicated to it, and it still takes time and patience to truly perfect it. Now, what you might think of when you hear hypnosis is somebody going like this in front of you with an object, or a spiral pattern that is like this. Now, if you notice something about this spiral, if you look in the center of the spiral, it's two little lines. Now, what happens when you actively spin the spiral? When it's going at a fast enough pace, the two little lines look like two little feet taking one step in front of the other. Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Okay? Now there's a point to this. What are you doing when you're walking? It's a completely subconscious effort that you're putting into walking. You're not thinking left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. But in the back of your mind, you're telling yourself left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. So to put this in just a visual format, your eyes focus forward like a path. if you are at all familiar with art, then you might recognize this type of pattern in use for a path. Say you're on a highway, and the highway is getting narrower as you progress farther down the vision, right? Like your focus narrows, right? And so an artist will commonly have a lengthy path narrow towards the end, okay? Now imagine you're looking down the path, the left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. This is spiraling, right? Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. And this is all in your mind, right? It's not a literal physical path being taken. It's a figurative path in your brain, in your mind, that is telling you a message, right? And so when you are telling somebody this sort of thing under that sort of influence, then it's an easier way to make them suggestible to the concept on a subliminal or subconscious level. I don't want to say subliminal, but on a definite subconscious level, it is speaking to the mind and leading you down a metaphorical path in your brain so that you can actually rewrite on a faster and more precise level than trying to actively convince yourself to do so, right? And I don't know if you noticed, I used a key word in that last statement. It makes them more easily suggestible. Suggestion, the power of suggestion, that is one of the secret weapons of a hypnotist. And even if you're only interested in self-hypnosis, the power of suggestion is very powerful. You can suggest just about anything, right? Now, where the training comes into play is where if you don't want to lug around like a disc to spin around in front of somebody, or if you don't want to look like some sort of mystic or something going like this to enhance the focus of the person, if you want to just be a speech hypnotist, then you have to develop a script, so to speak. And if you're well trained at this, you don't have to write down the entire script. In fact, it helps if you can avoid that, because reading out a script sounds scripted, right? You need to kind of be able to improvise based on the person's body language and reactionary behaviors to your speech patterns. So here's how it would generally go. You would tell the person or suggest to the person that they can close their eyes whenever they feel comfortable, right? You might first have them do some breathing exercises. You might first have a conversation with them to get them more comfortable with you. But when it comes down to the actual action itself being taken, you start with having them close their eyes, take a deep breath in, and breathe out. And here's the interesting thing. You tell them to relax. Relax the body. Starting with the feet. You notice your feet starting to relax, starting to lighten, as though you can almost not even feel them. Your feet are almost not even there. You work your way up to the legs. You notice your legs starting to relieve tension. You notice all the stress just washing out of your legs. Your knees feel looser. Your legs are getting lighter and less stressful as we speak. Work your way up to the torso. You notice your stomach and your chest starting to relax. Your stomach is less disturbed. Your chest feels more lightened. These sort of things, right? Your arms. It feels as though your arms aren't even there. And remember to focus on your breathing. Just relax. And then when you've worked your way up to above the neck, then you start making suggestions. You start saying, now perhaps imagine that you're on a beach. And on that beach, you can feel the sand beneath your feet. You notice the waves of the ocean drawing in and drawing out. You can hear the sound of the water as it washes over the shore and pulls back into the ocean. And say, like, if they're stressed, right, you can say, like, imagine that ocean is your stress. And as the stress washes in, it just as easily pulls out. And you're not even in that ocean right now. You're standing on the beach. That water can't even reach you. That stress is gone right now. And you can keep it that way, right? Or say that the person really wants to quit smoking. You could suggest to them, imagine that you are at work and a, a coworker or your manager or your boss comes up to you and asks you to do a task that is beyond what you're ready to do, you can then add to that, right? You can say, now you feel like having a smoke. You feel like having a cigarette right now. But what you realize is that that cigarette is out of reach. And that's okay. You do not need the cigarette to be in reach. You can get by your day without the cigarette. It is easy to go without the cigarette, right? And so it really boils down to the power of perception according to the suggestion of the hypnotist, right? And I'm just freestyling right now, you know, it's not very candid, so to speak, because there's no one I'm actually saying this to. I'm just giving as prime an example as I can in front of a camera, in front of the audience of this camera, right? And you know, there's other forms of hypnosis too that I'm less familiar with, like the touch induction, or, you know, having a person, you know, be able to regress to past lives and explore like deeper visual aspects. But those are less commonly taught on a platform like YouTube. That's more something that you develop on your own. The basics of hypnosis itself is just the power of suggestion and being able to adequately catch the person's focus, right? That's one of the key aspects. That's why they have the spiral. That's why they swing a pendant in front of your face and get you to focus on it, right? It tells your brain, like, look, I'm in focus mode now, and I'm going to listen to what they're saying. And you need to have an amount of command to your voice, but you don't necessarily want to come across like a military officer. You would perhaps want to have a gentler, more calming demeanor to your voice. You want to come across non-assuming, non-expectational. And doing so gains the person's trust, enhances their focus, and allows them to do the rewriting themselves, which is why the trust element is so important an aspect. The idea that any of this is difficult is actually rather absurd. But the idea that learning this is a challenge without the proper gateways to this knowledge is definitely a challenge. I learned the hard way. I spent years and years and years just trying to understand the depth of catching the focus of a person. And once I developed that aspect of it in my mind, then I realized I have nothing to say to that, right? How would I put this, right? And then I had to learn all over again another aspect of it, the power of suggestion, right? And then I had to learn again, perspective, and gaining the trust of that person with what you're saying and how you come across to them, right? So you want to have confidence, you want to have respect, and you need to have a certain command about yourself. You need to come across as somebody who has command of the situation, right? But you don't want that to be intensely the focus. You just need that to be there. You can't tell the person to focus on something without being able to command the attention of that person, right? Or command the focus of the individual more so to speak. Taking all of this into consideration, what have we truly learned? It's all the basics, right? It's all basic things that you already knew. Okay, so that's part of the secret of hypnosis, is you already know these things. You already know these things, and the things you want are the things that you are denying that you already know, right? And so you want to take that situation for the person and flip it around. And the best way to do that is to narrate a mental function for them while you are speaking with them. And the thing is, that's not the only forms of hypnosis. There's induction hypnosis, there's getting them to focus on an object or an image, there's having them close their eyes, practice with their breathing, and visualizing an aspect of their life that they can take command of, right? But also, interesting thing about self-hypnosis is that you can do the exact same thing to yourself. It's just that with the power of the knowledge of hypnosis, then suddenly the world is a canvas for yourself, and you can write anything into your own reality, right? And you can utilize that to your advantage, although it's a very delicate situation. You can tell yourself, you can suggest enough to yourself, you can alter or change your perspective enough that when you make the decision, you can tell yourself, okay, when I go to this person, this is going to be my primary focus, right? And just keep it at that. When I get to this person, this is going to be my primary focus. And then when you get to that person, that becomes your primary focus. Now, what's special about this? When it's your primary focus, it adjusts what the conversation is about, right? And adjusting the conversation according to a suggestibility can, waking state, hypnotize the person on a subliminal level. And you can adjust the features of that person without them even knowing, right? Now, this sounds insidious or like covertly deceitful, so to speak, or like you might be potentially damaging the person's conscious behaviors while doing this. But the thing is, the person in a waking state has more emotional resilience to that sort of suggestibility, right? So it is always up to the individual whether or not they can become hypnotized, right? If the person doesn't want to be hypnotized, they won't be hypnotized. But the thing is, this is on a subconscious level, right? Having a conversation amongst each other is already the same as self-hypnosis. And convincing one another of a certain area of a certain topic is the exact same thing as hypnosis. It changes the person's viewpoint, it changes the person's actions, behaviors, emotions, etc., right? So, like, I could say to you, I love you, right? And immediately you have the sensation according to my love towards you, right? It may be subjective to a degree, but I am altering that state of mind inside of you by saying those words. Or I could say, I'm going to go to the bathroom right now, right? And like, please excuse me, right? And that person will just either accept it or say like, oh, wait, before you do that, can I ask you to, right? And so it is still a hypnotic function within the body dynamic, the body, brain, mind, spirit, soul, like all of it, right? So in the long run, we live our lives according to a hypnotic basis. It's merely the case of, or yeah, it's merely a case of taking control of that situation for yourself. Like, once you realize that everyone is hypnotized, including yourself, you can just start having fun with it, right? The thing is, just avoid a lie. Avoid a lie, because if you convince somebody of a lie, it brings them to a lower state of mind. And it's kind of like a disconnect from reality for that person. And it can be really troubling to experience that for the individual. So that would be my one piece of advice, is remain truthful. And then beyond that, it's suggestion, 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 perspective, and focus. Having a command of the situation and being able to remain calm throughout the situation. If you can master all of these, then there are a myriad of different methods that I'm sure even you could develop that has not yet been utilized. And that's the power of creativity. So if you want to have the knowledge of hypnosis, just work on these things and realize that it's much easier done than said, actually.